We only do business with major companies. Because it's embarrassing. So says Karamo Takashi, laughing with a glass of champagne in his hand. He looks down on me as he stands in front of me at the reunion. We only just met at a meeting the other day, but he still treats me like a plain classmate. I'm wearing a plain gray suit. I'm certainly a quiet engineer. But without my technology, Kuramochi wouldn't be able to build a single company. How dare you get this far without knowing that? The air around me becomes slightly tense at my words. I quietly put on my glass, look at him, and reply with just one word. With the end of the contract, that short word will greatly upset Kuramochi Takashi's life. He himself is still unaware of this. My name is Kensuke Seion. I'm 46 years old and I serve as the CEO of Force Material Company, Limited. Not many people will recognize my pseudonym, but the nanocarbon composite material I developed is used in a wide range of applications, from automobiles to home appliances, medicine, and aerospace. I have over 40 patents, all of which are technologies I have worked on directly. However, I don't like to be in the public eye. I always wear a white shirt and silently face my experiments in the lab. Many people think that I'm just a boring technician. But technology supports someone's life from the ground up. That pride has driven me to this point. Today, I am walking the path I believe in. Tension was as usual in the conference room. In front of me, Kuramochi Takashi, the second president of Kuramochi Industries, was leaning back in his chair and playing with his smartphone. Even when someone started to talk, his eyes were on the screen. He didn't reply and sometimes even turned his head. On his desk were prototype parts made with our latest material. But he showed no interest. Yet he was forceful when it came to adjusting the schedule. This could be brought forward by 2 weeks. It's because of the exhibition. Every time an unreasonable request is made, our staff gets angry. He shows no interest in inspection items or safety standards, and his top priority is to get it done quickly and cheaply. The efforts and sincerity of the engineers are drowned out behind the numbers. Our company sells because of our brand. Technology is like a secondary forest. I slowly speak, expecting him to remain calm. If you prioritize speed and lower quality, your brand will sink with it. Are you serious? You're just an abstraction, but you can't handle the red crown. We're a major company. He laughed as if it were a joke and turned his back on the surrounding employees as if asking for their agreement. No one tried to look him in the eye, but I didn't seem to care. That day, a young employee was presenting a new design proposal. But before he could speak, Tashi leaned forward and said, "Are you serious? Isn't that a low level?" The atmosphere in the conference room froze. The young employee's hands were shaking slightly. The other employees looked down. And no one tried to touch him. I've seen that scene many times. The way he treats his subordinates, the condescension that seeps into the bridge of his words. It's not indifference, it's the careless insult that's in between. That's the worst thing. After a hell break, it's time to resume the meeting. Tashi arrives late. He has a cafe and a kamibokoro from a restaurant famous for its high-end lunches in his hands. He continues to chat endlessly about things that are not related to the meeting, and doesn't even look at the important development report. There's something called a metaverse. I've been a bit interested in it lately. I can't make a product like that. It would be helpful if you could propose a development policy based on the business plan. Wow, he's saying something stiff again. That's what engineers are like. He thinks about the atmosphere. He throws in an impossible machine on a whim, and if it doesn't work, he blames the engineers. There have been many such scenes in the past few months. He treats his employees as if they were tools. He forces things on them and denies their personalities. If he succeeds, he takes credit, and if he fails, it's someone else's fault. On the way home, one of our employees quietly went to sneak away. To be honest, it's tough to continue with this person for a long time. I speak up. I think so too. No more words were needed. Does not know the value of technology. He tramples on them because he doesn't know them. But he believes he is treating them right. When the door to the conference room closed and he was out of sight, I felt something click deep in my chest. The moment I opened the door to the banquet room, the light of the chandelier poured into my field of vision. A large hall in a famous hotel in Tokyo. A junior high school reunion was being held there for the first time in over 10 years. I fastened my black tie and quietly received my name tag at the reception desk. I knew that this was not a place where I should be the center of attention. Still, I came here to give my all to the person who invited me. Suddenly, I noticed a man who stood out. He was wearing a flashy blue suit with a gold tie on his chest. He had champagne in one hand and a smartphone in the other. Kuramochi Takashita. As always, he is a man who is not satisfied unless he is the main character. When he noticed my presence, he walked over to me. But his attitude was that he was looking at someone he had seen during work. Ah, I was thinking who it was. What was it? The engineer, something like that. Something like metal force material. Ah, that. So why are you here? You're not a classmate? When I nodded, Tashi's eyes widened and he burst out laughing. Seriously? I didn't even notice. If you don't remember, you must have been that plain since you were young. He tapped me on the shoulder and continued. By the way, is the management of the broadcasting something okay? Small and medium-sized companies have a hard time managing unlike large companies. The classmates around me looked away with a laughing face. I didn't even read the atmosphere and continued talking with a laugh. Our company is now a big company in the industry. The media comes to interview us, and my interview was in a magazine. Did you see it? I didn't respond in particular, just put my mouth to the glass. Every time I meet this man, I think the more he talks, the shallower he becomes. And this time he didn't disappoint me. Well, to be honest, his face looked a little similar. He has no idea how insensitive the words that follow are. We only do business with major companies. Because it's embarrassing. I put the glass back on the table, looked him straight in the face, and said just one thing. The air stopped when the contract ended. I was still, but then I burst out laughing while I stopped moving for a moment. What? Are you serious? Are you saying that now? I mean, when your company finishes doing business with us, isn't it over? We're a major company. He looked around and laughed triumphantly. Meanwhile, he didn't notice that no one was laughing back. His enlightened voice only made the atmosphere even colder. I turned my back on him without saying anything. His dry laughter and meaningless words of gratitude pierced my back. On my way to the exit, Shunsuke Kumarai, who invited me to the reunion, came to me in a whisper. "Lion, are you serious?" I stopped and answered briefly. "I'm serious. It's work." When I went out to the lobby, the neon lights of the night city were on sale through the glass. I took my smartphone out of my jacket pocket and tapped the screen. I deleted the registered contact information for Kuramochi Songyo Company, Limited for no reason. From this moment on, hell began for Kuramochi. I achieved the notification syndrome of the contract chairman. I quietly passed through the reception desk of Kuramochi Songyo. While I was being guided to the king's office, the eyes of the employees gathered here for a moment, then quickly looked away. The atmosphere was slightly different from when I was treated as just another technician. But even so, I still believe that this company is the one that we choose. My relationship with Kuramochi Songyo has continued since the time of Kuramochi Tatsuya, who was the president and current chairman of Sendai. Tatsuya was a person who valued technology and listened sincerely to the voices of the field. It was because of that trust that we continued to respond with all our might. But everything changed after Kuramochi Takashi became president. On-site supervision, profit marketism, sincere words and actions, there was a limit to how much I could hold him by virtue. Normally, terminating the contract was a heavy decision that I could not make on my own. Still, I couldn't bear to watch employees and technology being overlooked anymore. Today I came here to draw a line. The door to the building opened, and Kuramochi Takashi slowly entered. He was smiling in his casual clothes, blue jacket and tie. You came by yourself? You're standing there. Well, it feels like he came today to apologize." A contract termination notice was quietly placed on the table. Kuramochi's smile twitched a little. "I came to formally inform you of the contract termination. We will terminate the supply technical support as of today." No, are you serious? You got angry about the reunion last week. That was a joke, right? It doesn't matter if it's a joke or not. We cannot continue doing business with companies that do not have a history with technology. I snorted and flipped through the notice. No, but is this okay? Isn't that more of a problem? If you cut ties with a big company like us, you'll end up crying anyway. His attitude never changes. On the sim floor, visible through the glass of the background room, employees of Kuramochi Industries were moving around for some reason. Deliveries from Force Materials had stopped. The materials hadn't been found yet. There was a hint of impatience in the fragmented voices. But Takashi didn't notice. I had stopped deliveries to Kuramochi Industries before coming here. I had also made arrangements with other parties not to deliver products or materials to Kuramochi Industries. We have already signed a delivery contract with another party. No one else can make products using our materials. Wow, are you serious? But honestly, there are so many different materials. Can't someone else make it? If you think so, please give it a try. But only if you don't take up our patents as a permanent position. When he said that, Kuramochi's face changed color for a moment. It was only for a moment, but it was proof that something was being recognized as reality for the first time. An employee came running in from outside the room. He was holding a printed report in his hand. "President, we don't have enough materials for the amount of funds, so don't come now. But, if we stop now, we won't make it to the exhibition in time. Moreover, almost all of the candidates were caught by force materials patent, and the heavy snow subsided for a moment. I looked at my face and glared at the documents. Did you really put everything together? No, we just signed the appropriate contracts to the extent necessary. A slight sense of confusion was spreading on his face. It seemed that he was finally starting to realize that something was wrong. I quietly pointed to one of the documents in front of Taka. Our material N-curve, which Kuramochi Industries uses, is made up of a unique composite technology based on nanocarbon. It is completely different from conventional materials in terms of temperature, heat resistance, and processability. So what does that matter? He tried to interrupt me, but I continued calmly. I'm not angry or disagreeing, I'm just telling the truth. Several of our patented technologies are used to manufacture the material. Moreover, they are protected by contracts that have already been signed. Even if the benefactor tries to procure a similar material from someone else, it will almost certainly be a patent infringement. Not only manufacturing, but also sales. Takashi was surprised and moved. It was the reaction of a man who was beginning to understand the situation he was in for the first time. However, it was clear that he was still trying to cling to the unfounded earthquake. That's something that can be managed. When Holmes somehow managed to sign the contract, I explained all the details to the Home Department at the headquarters. It was decided that there was no substitute for the N-curve, and it was clearly stated in the in-car documents. In other words, our material is a unique material. My face turned pale in an instant. At that moment, the illusion that he had that he would not be in trouble if he cut the force material completely collapsed. Unable to find a response, Kashi fell silent. I stood up and quietly gave an example. You know, because you're the president. It seems that it's not us who are in trouble, but the major companies. I'll consider it. When I opened the door to the Wang Shui room and went outside, several employees stopped to look at me. One of them whispered, "If line stops, all of this month's deliveries will be out." I didn't respond to those words. I just pressed the elevator button. While the employees of Kuramochi Industries were busy, the door opened and I got in. The door closed and I was in a silent box. In that too quiet space, only my own chirping sounded. But even that was calm. The counterattack had just begun. The next morning, I received a phone call. "President, it's from the sales manager of Kuramochi Industries. Would you like me to connect you?" There was a moment of silence, and I decided to answer the phone and was connected. "Yes, it's Seion." Seion-san, to be honest, there is a lot of chaos in the car, and I'm sorry to say that if possible, we would like to resume supply. The contract has already ended. Please contact the Home Department in the future. He appears calm at first glance, but there is impatience in his voice. He himself must already be aware of how the reckless behavior of the others is affecting him in the car. I understand that, but rumors have started to spread in the car that the president emotionally terminated the contract, and trust takes time to realize, but it only takes an instant to destroy it. Excuse me. The moment I put my hands back, I took a short breath. The collapse of the kuramochi industry has already begun. Oh, the collapse. I just need to watch it quietly. It was the afternoon of the day I received a call from the sales manager. As I was preparing for the meeting, my secretary came in. President, this time President Kuramochi of Kuramochi Industries came in suddenly. Please wait in the large room without a suitcase. I stopped what I was doing. Understood. I headed to the presentation room. When I opened the door to the large snow room, Mochi was sitting on the sofa, slapping his knees uncomfortably. When our eyes met, he immediately stood up without any time to make a face and said, "Let's talk calmly for a bit." I think we both had a lot of misunderstandings. This is really going too far. I sat down in silence. There was nothing on the table. It seemed that he hadn't brought any documents or business cards this time. Did you take that thing at the reunion seriously? No, it was a joke, I was just drunk. The reason for terminating the contract was not whether it was a joke or not. The head office's attitude was sincere towards technology. That's all. That's just your own selfish feeling. It's a solid issue. Our products at the exhibition are stuck, sales are in a frenzy, and it's a mess. I responded without batting an eye to the words that were yelled at me. Your convenience does not affect our judgment. We only work with companies that we can trust. Opened his eyes wide and then suppressed his words. So that's why he was planning to team up with someone else to surround us. It's not a case of surrounding us. It just happened naturally as a result of pushing the contract with the right party. I was leaning back in my chair and breathing heavily. There was a sense of impatience on his face that I had never seen before. And then words like a mouth slipped out of his mouth. The staff started calling me incompetent behind my back. His attitude suddenly changed. I can't believe it. You were the one who was fooled. You're cold. You're acting like the victim, but that's also the result of your own actions. Even after all this, he still pushes the responsibility onto others. Yes, engineers need to remain calm, so at that moment, there was a knock on the door and the secretary showed up. Seo-san, it's time for the meeting. I stood up. I stood up in a panic and instinctively grabbed my arm. Hey, please. Can't you take it away? Let's put it back the way it was. I quietly shook off his hand. Please leave. I have no intention of doing any business with you in the future. I opened my mouth and stood there without saying anything. As I left the room, the light shining through the window in the hallway was strong and dazzling in the night. The reflection of the light reflected the figure of Kumochi with her shoulders slumped through the glass of the room. But hell was yet to come. As I walked, I took my smartphone out of my pocket and checked a notification. It was time to move. It was a message from Murai, who had invited me to that reunion. It was still early, but it would be soon. I put my smartphone back in my pocket and opened the door to the conference room. The collapse is progressing quietly and steadily. The next day, as I left the conference room in the afternoon, my secretary came running up to me. President Kuramochi wants to talk to you directly again, so he is waiting for you in the room. I looked at my watch for a moment and nodded. What a nuisance. I was shown into the room and Kuramochi Takashi looked clearly tired, unlike the previous time. His loosened tie was not even tidy. It was the first time I had seen him in public like this. Sorry. I'm sorry for saying that before, so please help me somehow. His voice was loud and his eyes were not meeting. It seemed like even a layer of pride was already peeling off. What do you want me to help you with? Our clients are starting to say that they are reviewing their contracts one after another. Our exhibits, your materials, are not finished. It won't be delivered in time. As I told you, the contract has ended. His face twitched slightly. But he still refused to back down. Far from hiding his impatience, he was acting rough, almost like he was praying. Do you understand? But we have employees here too, and if they could deliver the goods, that would be fine. That's the result of your management decision. It has nothing to do with us. I bit my lip. But even so, as if he thought he couldn't go home with his head broken, Khan turned his eyes towards me. Please. If you just cooperate a little, everything will be fine. Come on. I slowly took out an envelope from my bag and placed it on the table. Was sent anonymously and was a suspicious record of the company's expense processing. The driver's remarks, brand purchases under the pretext of contact, and card history, all with dates and details. The regularity is disappearing from the face of the club holder, so I have a feeling that Tashi's mouth twitches. His gaze was directed at the envelope and he was clearly shaking. He was confronted with something he was supposed to be hiding, and he couldn't keep up with the words. What is this? What does it mean? I told him it was sent. It must be someone from within the company. It's proof that trust has been broken within my benefactor without me having to do anything. Stood up and reached for the envelope on the table. At that moment, I pulled it forward with my fingertips. His fingertips were still wandering slightly on the ground. It cannot be returned. A copy is kept at home. Hey, don't scream. What are you going to do? I have no words to say back. I just stared at his crumbling figure in silence. A few seconds of silence. Rice cakes are made with a trembling voice. If my father finds out about this, I will be the one. I always added quietly to that word. You already know. What? This morning, your father, the founder of your company, called our company. He politely apologized for the trouble. I was completely frozen. It was not defeat or anger that appeared on his face. It was just a deep despair. I stood up and left one last word. Please go through your lawyer for any further correspondence. This is my final advice. Just before leaving the Oyuki room and the door closing, I could hear the trembling concern of the owner faintly through the glass. My smartphone vibrated on my way to the elevator. It's about time to get serious. I'm ready. I replied briefly. It's about time. Thank you. But I'll be the one to land the final blow. The next day, I was called by Tatsuya and visited Kuramochi Industries. There was an odd atmosphere in the Kuramochi Industries headquarters lecture room. There was a dragon statue sitting quietly on the sofa. I entered the room with the secretary's guidance. Only the sound of the heavy door closing cut through the silence. I'm really sorry about that idiot. Sano-san, let me bow my head. Not at all. It's too much to ask for an apology from the chairman. It's embarrassing as a manager. But I wanted to meet him once and set an example. I bowed slightly and said thank you for going, and sat down in a chair. The conversation continued in silence for a while. But the air in the room was somehow full of tension. Then, without a knock, Tashi entered. With a messy tie and a sloppy suit. There was no sign of the intimidating presence he had in front of the president. What's this, all of a sudden? What are you doing here? Sit down. I clearly react to that short, sharp word. Before I could resist, I sat down on the sofa, confused. The reason for unilaterally terminating the contract with Horse Material was a management decision. It's only natural to prioritize cost over technology. The salesman said the same thing, and Tatsuya's expression changed in surprise at his remark. The next word was a clear refusal. We only do business with major companies. It's embarrassing. Were you the one who said that? What's that? Where did you hear it? The recording was sent to me by a reporter named Murai from the online media biz now. And it's already been circulated outside the company. Takashi's face twitches. I didn't say a word, just watched the two of them exchange. I could feel the tension and uncertainty floating in this space. And what's more, several anonymous documents had arrived from the car. Personal items purchased at his own expense, a trip to a hot spring with the driver. False reports. All of them have your name on them. What the hell is that? Who is that? Hey, did you set it up? I didn't do anything. It just came out of the company on its own. Even if they are suspicious, I have no recollection of it. Still, the fact that information is starting to leak from around Takashi is proof that the trust in the car is starting to crumble. Seeing Tashi shaking in unison, I slowly took out my tablet. There was an online article that was just uploaded this morning. The name is Murai Shi. Would you like to see it? It was just published this morning. The title is, A Festival of a Man Who Protected Himself by Saying That He Would Only Deal with Major Companies, What the President Who Was in Flames Lost. What? What is that? I turned the screen around and held it in front of Takashi. There was a photo of Tashi's face with his remarks at the reunion. The contents of the meal audio, as well as the absolute expenses and the chaos in the car, were written anonymously. The day of the flames has already started to spread. In the article, it was even said that he was the manager who lost the most support in the industry. It seems to be a hot topic on SNS. The president is trending from the hashtag. You're kidding me, right? I can see that his hands are shaking. Murai's desperation is merciless. Moreover, since it was written based on fact, I had no room to argue. Murai said that the duck came out of nowhere. It was exactly you. Don't yell. Why should I be quiet? That was the power of a man who had once led his employees as a founder. Even I couldn't help but straighten my back. I was going to intervene with you today. But I haven't yet. Really? But you have to settle this with your own mouth at the board meeting next week. If you can't do that, I'll end it right there. He couldn't hide his confusion and looked around. He must have realized that his father's words were seriously giving him one last chance. But it seemed he still didn't fully understand the meaning. What should I do to settle this? Apologize. To the company, to the employees. And to Seon-san. Above all, for yourself. My lips moved slightly, but I couldn't continue. His back looked smaller and weaker than ever. I listened to him in silence, watching his expression. His face, which looked as if he was about to make an excuse, had no arrogance from before. But somewhere, I could see the mornings when he still believed he would be forgiven. I am the founder. I can't let this company fall to the ground. But even more than that, I can't leave you like this. I tried to say something, but Tatsuya didn't give me time to make excuses. No excuses needed. The board meeting is next week. Take care of it yourself. That is the last act of parental mercy. Kuramochi and Tatsuya turned their backs on Tashi and said without looking back in front of the door. Decide with your own words. And then they left. Tashi was silent for a while, then suddenly stood up and faced me. Ah, Seon, you can't go back? Yes, that is the result of your choice. Tashi couldn't respond to those words. He just stood there, staring at the move on the wall. 1 week left until the board meeting. That time would feel hellishly long for the man called Kuramochi Takashi. As the tension among the executives reached its peak, the Kuramochi Industries extraordinary board meeting began at 3 p.m. The chairman sat in front of me. Next to him was the president, Takashi Kuramochi. And this time, the chairman was asked to hear the apology in person, so I was there too. Now, let's begin the extraordinary Quinn family. Yes, as previously announced, you should explain it yourself. Let's see how you draw the line. Silence continued for a few seconds. Everyone was sweating even though the air conditioning was on in the conference room. Let me say this first. This turmoil is by no means my sole responsibility. The guys in the sales department overreacted. It was just a series of misjudgments by my subordinates that led to this, and the expressions on the executives' faces gradually became limited. It was a mistake to start with partnering with someone who didn't fit our brand image. It wasn't suitable for our scale. Kept making excuses without looking at me. Even the sort of expenses was properly reported. I don't remember all the details of the camouflage, but there must have been some mistakes in the accounting. I've been working for this company for a long time. It's not something you can just say, cut it, or end it. At that moment, I slowly stood up. Quietly. But the atmosphere in the conference room definitely changed. Excuse me. These are the evidence. I handed the documents one by one to the center of the desk. First, here is the official notice of vomit regarding the contract with our company. We have decided that competition is impossible due to the direct cause of President Kuramochi's pointed remarks. Next, the history of brand name product purchases using the car credit card for expenses and the process record of the pointed out trip using the car credit card. I will explain only the facts. This is an internal document delivered anonymously to the in-car reporting hotline. It has been submitted to the Drug Enforcement Association. Please also check the audio data here. We only do business with major companies. Because it's embarrassing. This is a recording of a class reunion. My face is twisted. I'm sure you all already know the connection between this audio and the president from the hashtag currently spreading on SNS. The executives looked through the documents one after another in silence. No one tries to follow their wishes. Only in the heavy silence does he search for words and move his mouth. Finally, here is the additional whistleblower document that was submitted this time. It is a document from a sales department employee that arrived at the in-car reporting hotline. I open the envelope and distribute multiple copies to the executives. Inside were clear screenshots of the in-car email, the contents of the high-level instructions from the president, and a detailed record of the unnatural flow of transactions. President Kuramochi said that a specific client, his own classmate, had repeatedly made non-existent engineering hatches against key. Isn't that a sales decision? No, it is clearly stated that he was instructed to place orders on the premise of a kickback. As you can see, the amount is more than 4 times that of similar work, and the delivery record is unclear. Tashi leans forward without thinking. Don't worry. This testimony has already been shared with the accounting audit office and the legal department. It was his opinion that there was a suspicion that the flow of slush funds was being handled within the company. The faces of the executives clouded over. There was no longer any escape route left for his subordinates to say that it was their own doing. Taste, do you think I'm going to end up like this? I've expanded it to this extent. After my father quit, how much longer have I been alone? Only one word called my name. Enough already. Dad. Are you going to abandon me? I will protect the company. Your honor is of no concern. Those words made Kuramochi Takashi completely silent. We slowly stood up and looked at all the executives. I have a proposal here. We will immediately take a resolution to recognize Kuramochi Takashi as the representative director of Kuramochi Industries. Several executives looked at each other, but immediately began to nod. Not a single person opposed. Very well. It's indispensable. Kuramochi, you are dismissed from your position as president as of today. Don't mess with me. What did I do? She kicked the chair away and stood up, heading for the exit. But his feet were unsteady and he stumbled once in front of the door. I didn't stand up, just watched his back. The sound of the door closing sounded cold, like the lid of a heavy coffin closing. The man who once believed he was the one being chosen finally realized that he was no longer chosen by anyone. A week after she was appointed president, a man with an unsuitable appearance was standing at the reception desk of Force Material. He was now wearing a slim suit and hanging shoes. His face was pale and looked a little drenched. President Mochi-san, please guide me to meet him. She who entered the room was like a completely different person. He no longer overlaps with the man who used to shout at me and speak as if glaring at the industry. I'm sorry for the sudden visit. Please keep it short. Yes. Well, I'll be honest with you. I've lost everything now. My company, my position, my credibility, even my family, everything. After a night, I looked up. What I saw there was a completely different, even desolate appearance from the arrogance of the past. But I'm still looking for a place where I can start over again. I put out an old clear file on the desk. Inside were a reconstruction plan and a few business cards, but they all felt meaningless. An-san, could you please do one more deal with Atosha? If you can do that, they will invest in us, and if you return to the position of president, I want to use this as a tool for your return. That's not what I intend to do. No, maybe. But I'll do anything. I'll really do anything. I stood up and bowed my head so hard that I almost buckled. The figure that was about to bow was no longer the same as the person who used to be the one to choose. At that moment, my smartphone vibrated lightly. There was a message from Murai on the screen. Wow, you're really a sucker. The type that is the most delicious for the media. You will destroy yourself, and the person himself won't notice. We are mesh horses whenever this kind of thing becomes a topic of conversation. I ignored it and never showed the screen to you. I just received a message about you. From the reporter's village. The reporter who brought me down. Thanks to Kanegas, I'm still eating. Apparently, this kind of person is the best material for the media because they spread the news themselves. I shook my shoulders and lowered my head. The expression of the man whose pride had been crushed was not one of anger or regret, but simply fear. Stop it. That's what I said, but in a way it's true. It's not someone else's fault that you fell. Your own actions are the cause of everything. My lips trembled, and I tried to say something, but no sound came out. It was as if I had run out of excuses. My skills, which you looked down on as being from a shameful place, are now an indispensable lifeline for major companies. Even at the moment when I mistakenly thought that you were the one choosing, the world continued to choose honest skills like mine. I remained silent and lost my sight. I could see that my words and actions were quietly, but surely crushing him. Those words that I had dismissed because they were shameful, I'll give them back exactly the same. My contract with you is a shame for the future. Please leave. This is my final warning. The contract is over. I remained motionless for a while, eyes wide open. Eventually, he dragged his heavy body to his feet and bowed deeply. There was no longer any sense of dignity or composure in his back as he left the room. There was just the back of a man with nothing left. In the end, it was up to how society would treat him. The end had already been decided. No matter where he went, the outcome could not be changed. A few weeks had passed since I last saw Tashi, and it was mid-afternoon. I was heading to the station to have a late lunch. There, I noticed a man. Takashi was sitting on a bench in front of the station in a slim-fitting tracksuit. He was wearing his hoodie over his head, minding the gazes of the people on the street. I saw Tashi holding his smartphone with trembling fingers. His movements were restless, and his eyes were constantly wandering. I glanced at the screen and saw several search histories lined up. Kuramachi Takashi. Currently, Kuramachi Takashi is a president who only does business with major temp agencies. I couldn't help but look at the phrases I had heard somewhere before, and they cruelly pointed out his current position. He gently turned his smartphone screen down and turned his eyes to the blue sky. What he saw was far from the intimidating presence he once had. He was just a man who looked like a lost child. A photo of him taken secretly was posted on social media. It was really him. Wow, too pitiful. He must be a person who is ashamed. This is going to go viral on social media. Apparently he is now a temporary worker and his former subordinate is scolding him. Let's go with the caption. A word he casually uttered has now become a trend that has changed his life. Ironically, it was a typical example of someone who destroyed themselves with their own words. Another notification arrives on my smartphone. It's a new article from Mizuno. The title is Maro, a former president who was yelled at by his former subordinate, and now a man who chose a major company. There was a photo of him in work clothes holding a cardboard box. Mirai contacted him the other day, and it seems that he is now working as a temporary worker under his former subordinate. For Takashi, working under a subordinate who has been bossing him around until now must be hellish. The comments section of Biz Now was full of evacuation and long-term trolls. I guess I was the one who got what I deserved. Just looking at him makes me happy. That's exactly what happened when he said his contract was over. I put my smartphone down and bowed my head deeply. He has now become someone who will not be chosen. Not wanted by anyone, not believed by anyone. Just consumed as a laughing stock on the internet. There was no glory like there was in those days. And with the end of his contract, these words will be the only ones that will stick in his ears. These words were a verdict that quietly and surely ended the story of the man called Kura Takashi. On a weekend afternoon, I was slowly making tea in the study of my home. Outside the window, the sunlight was shining gently, and on the desk, technical letters from various companies were lined up like they were when he was alive. My smartphone was notified of an article about a man who once called himself a disgrace. But I never opened it. It's over now. Since the turmoil subsided, Force Material has received trust and requests from many companies. I quietly but surely increased my presence in the industry without any flashy advertising. Who will the world laugh at, and who will it praise? Time will tell. Now, let's move on to the next development. Only those who believe in technology and sincerity will remain in the end. Today, as always, I was facing forward with quiet pride.